The most aggressively transforming element of fishery management for me that I've observed in the last 10 years has to be predation. The Angling Trust reported that in the 1980s the cormorant population stood around 2,000, but nowadays it's looking more like 30,000 to 60,000. Whilst those figures are a little bit blurred and the dates are a little bit wishy-washy and how accurate they are, we don't know, but the trends are all in the same direction. And I'm sure you'll agree that you've seen lots more birds than you used to see, lots more otters than you used to see. So these trends over the last 10 years, we can sort of use to forecast what the next 10 years might look like. So let's focus on cormorants for this video, and we're going to be joining Fishery shortly at a fishery up the road to show you exactly how I think fisheries need to be adapting now, because whilst cormorants aren't really posing much of a threat to carp fisheries, in fact they might be serving you a purpose in cropping off your juvenile fish, it's the specimen coarse fish market that are really going to suffer.
I'm Ben and this is the BP Milling YouTube channel where I make diverse fishery management content to grow your knowledge and help improve your fishery. Enjoy the video. Lavington Angling Club have sacrificed one of their ponds on the site to become a predator-proof stock pond. A well-kept predator net inside their otter-proof boundary allows them to rear their future stock to future-proof the other angling lakes. Moving juvenile fish from their angling lakes to be grown in the stock pond kills two birds with one stone. It reduces the biomass in the angling lakes and gives those juvenile fish the opportunity to grow beyond the ideal size of the cormorant. The difference from farming fish commercially is that most fish farms are monoculture systems, whereas this stock pond is housing multiple coarse species. So from this one pond, the club can harvest a mix of species to tip the population balance in the angling lakes in the favour of whichever species they choose. Also, by keeping these fish safe from predators and anglers and supplementing with lots of our food, these fish remain in immaculate condition. Therefore, following a health check, there's always the opportunity to market their surplus fish to other local clubs as another source of income should they wish to do so. Making your site self-sufficient by rearing fish on site is the most biosecure and cost-effective way to restock your waters. It eliminates the risk of introducing unfamiliar parasites onto your site from external sources, and it's pretty normal for even the healthiest fish to be hosting parasites which pass a health check. A cormorant-proof rudd, roach, crucian, perch or bream is a specimen-sized fish and hard to purchase. If you do find them, they're most likely an old fish from a fish dealer which may not be in the best condition and may not be carrying a legitimate health check. Combined with that, older specimen fish rarely transition into new waters seamlessly. Stress will be high and they rarely have the desired effect on your fishery anyway. Genuine health-checked fish from a reputable fish farm or supplier are very expensive, and particularly tench, crucians, bream or roach, and that's because many years of feeding have been invested in those fish to get them to that size, unlike carp which grow incredibly fast. So the lowest risk and most cost effective way to introduce these cormorant proof fish is to create your own predator proof facilities and rear your own. Then these fish grow familiar with your water chemistry and native parasites and will have developed their resilience when it comes to introducing them to the angling lakes.
It's one of the fish we put in there for breeding, but whilst he's been in there he's done really well.
Whilst fish farmers might not want this to be the case, could this self-sufficiency be the future of fishery management? Another cormorant deterrent I've been playing around with the last few years is these mannequins. And actually I've been really surprised at how effective they've been. I've seen them on fish farms before, previous places I've worked, and actually I didn't really think they'd be much good. I thought cormorants become used to them. To be honest, every time I come around the corner to feed these ponds, I actually think there's a person on the ponds. Oi, what are you doing? If they can fool me, I'm sure they can fool a cormorant. And to be honest, ever since I've had these mannequins set up on the ponds, although they look unsightly, I don't like how they look. It makes the place look a bit scruffy. In the winter it's necessary because they really do work. They really do keep the cormorants away, and the cormorants are much less happy with settling down on a pond. I'm sure if you don't move the mannequins around, then perhaps one cormorant might start to clock on that it's not really a person there, but honestly they've been really effective in keeping the cormorants away on these ponds, because before I had them set up I was getting visits by half a dozen to a dozen birds, Not every day, but just on the odd occasion you'd come down and you'd find one or two. So I looked at getting these mannequins, and since I've set them up I've been really impressed at actually how effective they are. So that's one option. I know on a fishery they're not ideal, they don't look smart. I try and take pride in keeping my ponds smart, keeping them well cut and presentable. So having a mannequin as a scarecrow down here always looks a little bit tacky, but you don't need it through the winter. These little fellas will help keep those cormorants away. They're definitely not the silver bullet, but they definitely help to keep cormorants off. So this is how I'm protecting the future of the fish here on the farm. Any fish in their first year, from sort of 2 inches up to 8 inches, they're all going to be on the menu for cormorants, so we need to protect them. Back when I first started farming carp, I didn't need a predator net at all. I started off with single strands of twine going along the ponds to try and put them off landing, which works. It makes them more hesitant, but if they want to get in, they'll get in. They'll know which pond to go in to find what they're looking for, so they're really clever birds. So I've gone over to a predator net, and it took me a little while to work out how to set this up and how to get the net nice and taut across the pond, the best method of pinning it up and keeping it tight. And actually I found I've changed it a few times over the years. First I started off with posts knocked in around the pond at different areas, just to keep the net pinned tight all the way around the pond, and that worked for a bit, but the posts start to go sloppy. The tension that you need on the net, the more tension you can have, the less maintenance you'll need. So if the net's too slack, you'll get birds try and land on the pond, they'll get caught up in the net. The tighter you keep it, the easier it is for birds to basically bounce off of it, use it as a bit of a trampoline. They're not going to get caught up. If you've got too much slack in the net, they'll actually get their feet caught and you'll have to come and get them out or cut them out. I've found that keeping it tight, I thought, right, okay, the posts started to lean, so I propped them back upright, sunk them in further and put some post mix around them. Thought that'd do it, that'd keep it nice and tight. That didn't do it. It lasted about another year and they started to go again. The slack started to appear in the net again. The net started to touch the surface of the pond. So in most recent times I've been round and put a box strut in to help support those posts that are leaning, that are taking the most tension out the corners. Those box struts hold real solid, and those posts haven't moved an inch, and that's kept the tension right across the pond again. So around those posts I put a high tensile strand of wire. I tension that right up, so there's a lot of tension pulling inwards, but that allows me to pull the net tight and stitch it around the high tensile wire, and that's kept it tight on all axes, and that's keeping the net up above the water with plenty of room, keeping it nice and tight, so any birds that think they can land in there, they can bounce off the net and bugger off again. And that seems to be doing the job, although it's not a silver bullet again, because you can still get cormorants, and I have had cormorants under this net. They can land on the net and they can tuck themselves in and get through the holes in the mesh, and they can land on the grass and walk in. So it's not a silver bullet. But now I've moved my fish from the ponds where they've bred naturally and were naturally recruited. I've moved them out of those ponds during the harvest and moved them into this predator-proof pond. So I've got a pond where they're completely secure from otters and from cormorants. So now I can move the mannequins that were keeping them secure up in the broodfish pond where there's not a net, and now the mannequins can come down here. And then I've got two methods of keeping the cormorants off, and hopefully that should do the job, and I'll have a lovely crop of C1s in here. But yes, I'm afraid I think a predator net is going to be a necessary expense for fisheries that are looking to grow their own fish up to £2. Beyond £2 they should be safe from cormorants, but below £2 they are absolutely on the menu for cormorants, and more so as time goes on and the populations continue to explode.